don't know if you've seen that meme of the daffodils coming up. They're in the underground and they're going, oh, I can feel the sunshine, and then they sprout and it's miserable weather and they're getting blown about all over the place. Welcome to this week's Natural Gardening Live with me, Josie, your natural gardening coach. Today we are talking about bulbs. Not light bulbs, but we are talking about garden bulbs, flower bulbs, summer bulbs, spring bulbs. I talked to you about how bulbs can support you and your garden. And I've got 5 tips for you as well, just because I can. 5 tips to help you grow bulbs successfully. So let's get stuck in. As we come into spring, you're starting to think about planting your summer bulbs or shopping for your summer bulbs. And I hope this helps a little bit and gets you in the right frame of mind for planting bulbs. So bulbs are a great way of creating consistent and reliable displays in your garden. They grow and spread on their own year after year. They will grow on their own, they will sprout on their own and flower on their own without you having to intervene, which is amazing. So that will help you to create more time to look after the rest of your garden. Yeah, reducing the pressure on taking care of the rest of your garden, freeing up time for you to enjoy them more, which is lovely. Massive benefit of bulbs is that they store all the food that they need to produce the roots and the leaves and the flowers in their bulb, so in the bulb itself. That is the food source. So if you think about if you've grown onions before, so the onion set, that is the food source for the new onion plant. So the set doesn't swell, the set will then shrink down to feed the plant. The plant produces leaves, it will then take the energy from the sun, come down from the sunshine, see it from my light there, from the sunshine, down into the leaves, and then it will feed the bulb to grow the bulb. So if you think about it from an onion's point of view, that's how it works. So yeah, they store the food that they need in the bulb itself. So they don't need anything really from the soil for the first when they're producing roots and producing the leaves until the leaves get big enough in like the early spring, summertime, and they can start drawing the energy from the sunshine. So it's all they need is in the bulb already. It's just so simple to look after. They don't have to wait for the soil to get up to temperature. They don't have to have good, high nutrient-rich, good fertile soil because they've got it all there in the bulb, so they don't have to worry about any of that. And they can tolerate such cold temperatures, which is why you get such early flowering bulbs. So they don't need to wait till you get to your 10 degrees, average of 10 degrees over a week for things to start germinating. They can just kick off, which is great. This is what I was saying about the early flowering ones. Bulbs can provide a crucial and very vital, should I say more than crucial, source of nectar for early emerging insects and pollinators. So the beneficial insects for your garden. If you have early flowering bulbs, such as crocuses, snowdrops, things like that, if you have plants like this growing in your garden, the early emerging bees and butterflies and all that sort of thing that need the nectar early on in the season, they're going to be hunting high and low for flowers that are out at that time of year. And if you've got them growing in your garden, they are going to find them, and then they're going to like your garden and stay there. If these if these beneficial insects stay in your garden, that's going to help you throughout your year of helping to maintain, what beneficial insects do. They keep the pests under control, they pollinate your flowers, they produce more fruit, more vegetables, more seed as well, and they help plants to complete their life cycles, so they set seed, and they keep your garden happy and healthy. So if you get them attracted in early on, and they like your garden, it's a benefit on you for the whole year then. It's perfect. So a bit of early nectar is what they need, and if you can give it to them, they'll be your friend for life. That's how bulbs will help to support you and your garden throughout the year. And they've got so many more benefits to them than that as well. But I could go on for days about it, but I won't. 5 tips to growing your bulbs successfully. So here's your tips. So hopefully, as we come into spring, and you're starting to think about what summer bulbs to plant, what you want to buy and what you want to plant up. Hopefully these will help you to grow them successfully and have them flourish year after year in your garden. You don't have to worry about them. So tip number 1. Planting at the correct time. As I said about planting summer bulbs now, same with spring bulbs are better planted in the autumn winter time. I don't know if you've seen that meme of the daffodils coming up. They're in the underground and they're going, oh, I can feel the sunshine, and then they sprout and it's miserable weather and they're getting blown about all over the place. That's what they do. They waiting for their food source is all there, the bulbs, they're ready to go, and they're just waiting for the slight warmth of the soil for the spring, and then they start to sprout. So you can get obviously the bulbs that can sprout. I like the word sprout. It's not quite the right word, but you understand. That can tolerate the colder, so they will sprout sooner. Crocuses and snowdrops, the early emergers, And then you've got them that are slightly more sensitive to the cold, that emerge later and later and later and later. So say like the early flowering daffodils right through to the later flowering daffodils, tulips, that sort of thing. So yes, knowing the correct time to plant them is crucial, because if you plant an early emerger, if you like a snowdrop, in midsummer, you're not going to get a lot until the next year. So you're not going to get the full experience, if you like. And they're not going to be very happy for it as well, because they're not going to have the time to sprout, to get the energy back, to die back, and then create another bulb. So they're not going to get out what they need to either. So it's a lose-lose all round on that front. So understanding when you need to plant them and planting them at the correct time of year is crucial for a successful bulb. Planting the correct way up now, and to the correct depth as well, I'll put that one in for good measure. But correct way up is important. And so many people make the mistake when they don't really know what they're doing with bulbs or planting bulbs, especially in containers as well. If they plant them upside down, so the roots are upwards and the tip, the bud, if you like, is facing down, okay, there is a chance that it will grow quite okay. It won't be happy if it does grow, because it's going to have more effort to go down to go back up again, and the chances are it's not going to grow at all, because the bud will just start to rot as it starts to produce the green. It will start to rot, and then it will rot the bulb, and then the bulb will just die. So if you have it the right way up, the leaves can go straight up and out the soil. They won't rot, and they won't cause any damage or anything like that, and they're going to be much happier for it. The roots are going to go exactly where they need to go, and they're just going to spread out in the ground and take up all the nutrients that they need to do, and they're going to be much happier for it. So there is a lot more technical way I could have put that, but I thought that was simple enough. So it makes sense to me, it's fine. So yeah, plant them the right way up. So simple. If you look at a bulb, you can see there's a point on the top of the bulb, and you can see the roots on the bottom usually. If you can't, the bottom of the bulb will be slightly flatter than the top of the bulb. So you can kind of tell the correct depth as well. Now, this can also be an obstacle, if you like, for bulbs to grow successfully anyway. Having them at the wrong depth. If you're layering your bulbs in a container, or even in the ground, if you're layering them, you always start with the biggest bulbs on the bottom. So the biggest bulbs, they should be planted the size of the bulb again. So it's like double the height. You can go a little bit deeper if you want to, but double the height is a good rule of thumb. So you take the size of the bulb, and then you go again. That depth, that's the depth that you should plant the bulb at. So you always start with the biggest bulbs on the bottom and go up to the smallest. So it's the same as to say in the ground or in containers. That's a good rule of thumb to go with. So start at the biggest and go with the smallest. Planting at the correct depth is important, because if you plant a tiny bulb, like 6 times its depth, it's going to have to work so hard to get up to the light to then refill its bulb. If it uses all the bulb energy up before it gets to the top, it's not going to refill its bulb, if you like, and then it won't survive the year, and then it won't come back. So you need to cut them some slack a little bit and give them some height to get there. So plant them at the correct depth and the right way up. Feeding. So feeding your bulbs. Now I know I said all the energy is inside the bulb, so all the energy is inside the bulb, but when the plant's grown, flowered, happy, got the sunshine going down into the leaves, keeping the plant happy and healthy for the spring, summertime. When the plant starts to go over, which leads me nicely into another tip in a second, when the plant starts to go over, if you feed it at that point with a really good potassium feed, it will then grow the bulb bigger and stronger than it would do just taking the sunshine. You don't have to do this, because they'll be quite happy taking the nutrients from the soil with the roots and the sunshine. That will be absolutely fine. If you don't do anything to them at all, that will suffice. That'll be fine. So, but as a good tip, if you feed them when the leaves start to go over, when the flowers have gone and they're just starting to look sad, give them a good potassium feed, like banana skin, liquid feed. You can use tomato feed. Give them a good feed, potassium feed at that point, and then that will help to grow the bulb bigger and then produce more bulbs as well for the plant to grow and spread. So it just gives it a little bit of a boost at the end of the year, because that's what they need. They've worked so hard and they've used their bulb up, and they've worked so hard to grow another bulb. They just need a bit of help. So feeding your bulbs as they start to go over is a crucial one. Don't cut back too soon. Now, this is an argument I have quite often when people want to mow lawns and bulbs are growing up in the lawns, like, as I say, like crocuses or daffodils. leave them as long as you can, because the more sunshine the leaves take in, the bigger the bulb's going to grow, meaning the better plant will be next year. It can mean the difference between the plant surviving the winter and coming back next year to not doing that. So if you can leave them as long as you possibly can, and then before you might mow them off if you can, or just wait until the leaves completely die back and they're yellow and brown and manky before you mow the lawn. That is the best time to do it. Absolutely fine. But if you can leave them as long as you possibly can, the more energy they can get from the sunshine into the bulb, the better it will be next year. And the better your display, the more reliable it's going to be, and the less work you've got to do next year. So leave it as long as you possibly can to cut them back. And the last one is lifting and dividing. Now, if you've had a clump of bulbs in an area for a long, long time, clump of snowdrops or clump of bluebells, this is a good one for bluebells actually, because they tend to clump quite quickly and grow quite quickly, like spread themselves out. So the more they clump, the bigger the clump gets. The bulbs that get squashed together won't flower, they won't do anything. So they're just going to take out space, and eventually then that will become a big bald spot in the middle of the clump. So if you take the time to dig the clump and then divide the bulbs up and then transplant them around the garden, that's going to make the whole lot more happy, because they're going to have the space to get the light, and they're going to have the space to grow and get the nutrients from the soil and root and all that sort of thing. So by taking the time to divide them up, you don't want to do it like the first year you've planted the bulbs. Leave it a few years, and then you can start to dig and divide and separate and then spread the love around the garden. So it's a good way of growing your garden for free as well, if you just leave them a few years and then divide them up. But they'll be so much happier for it. And yeah, it's going to make the colour much nicer. Yeah, lifting and dividing, very good, important thing to do late in the autumn to help to keep the bulbs happy, keep the flower and the colours going longer, and yeah, just good for everybody. You can spread the love, you can divide up and pass to your friends and family, you can spread them around your garden to grow your garden for free. The world's your oyster. So hopefully that will help you to, when you plant your summer bulbs this year, to keep an eye on them and keep them growing happily and healthily. If you've got any questions, please feel free to comment below this video, and I'll leave it there. It's great to obviously be here again and see you, and kind of see you all. You can see me, it's good enough. And I'll catch you next week.